Welcome to Module 2, Querying a Database. So one of the primary benefits of using a database management system such as Access is having the ability to find answers to questions related to the data that's stored in the database. So when you pose a question to Access or any other database management system, the question is called a query. A query is simply a question presented in a way that Access can process or a database can process. Examples of questions relating to the data in the CMF VETS database are shown here. So they are questions like, what are the patient's names, types, and breeds? Who are the owners and what are their pet treatments? And what are the treatments and their costs? So these are queries that look kind of like tables that we have asked the database. So in addition to questions like these, CMF VETS managers need to find information about a patient, like the animal type, such as are they a canine or a feline. The managers can use things like a parameter query, which we'll look at. And a parameter query really just prompts you to enter a search term and then will display the results of your search term that you entered. They may also want to summarize their data in a specific way, such as by animal type or treatment costs, which might involve some kind of calculation. They could use what's known as a cross-tab query to present the data in a desired format. So in this module, we're going to learn how to create and use the queries that are shown here. So the first thing we're going to do to get started is make sure we have our CMF VETS that came from your SAM or from Cengage. So download that one. Let's not continue on the one that we've already uploaded. So we're starting a new one for Module 2. Now we're going to go and add some records to our database. So what you'll find is I will stop talking, get it all typed up, and then show you the entered data for each part, because it's pretty time consuming entering data sometimes. So the first thing we need to do is enter data in the owners table. So I'm just going to open up the owners table, and I need to have 8 records in here. So what I'm going to do is start typing those records in here. You'll find the data that's required to enter is on page 2-5. So we're starting with O3, and that is for Liz O'Brien. So I'm going to fill those in, and we will take a pause here while I do that, and it will come back automatically with those filled in, and then we'll move on to the next piece. So I'm going to start here, and I'm just going to start typing and tabbing and type in all of the information for Liz all the way down to Ian Kaufman. Okay, so I have entered all of the data into the table here for the owners. So we needed to get up to O-8 for Ian Kaufman. And now we're going to enter information into the patients table. Okay, so you're going to have to open up the patients table, and we will enter information in the patients table. That information is figure 2-5B on page 2-6. So what I'm going to do is enter all of the patients. We have some new patients in there, and quite a few actually. So I need to add 9 new patients. So I will put those patients in and come back. So it should have patient name, animal type, breed, and owner ID. All right, so I entered the new people. Oops, I think Rawiwi, I don't know what a Rawiwi is. Hooper turned out to be a terrier. I think my hands were on the wrong key, but that's an interesting word, isn't it? It is a terrier. There we go. And they want us to fix up Paws, Ranger, and Fluffy to fall in line with our P1, P2, like patient 1, patient 2. So they want to format it a little bit more. So Paws is going to be changed to a P1, or sorry, P10, so P10. Ranger needs to be changed to a P11. So we're just going to click on that, delete what's there, and change it to P-12 for Fluffy. Okay, so now we have P10, 11, and 12. Those were the original 3 that were in there and owned by owner 1 and owner 2. And now we have a bunch of new pets in there. And so just double check your spelling, that kind of stuff, and make sure this data is all entered. And once we're done with that, we're going to enter some more information. Okay, so we're going to enter the, open the veterinarians table. Okay, so I'm going to open the vets table. So the veterinarian table only has 2 people in it. And I'm going to open the cell below Gomez, which is there, and I'm going to enter the data on page 2-16 under figure 2-5C. So I'm just going to enter the information for Maya, and we'll get that done. It's not very much there, which is nice. So she is, no, actually there's 2 of them. We have to make sure we have all of them. So we have William Black, but we don't have Calvin Bennett or Mia Ranley. So we have to enter both of those guys in there. So that's what I'll do. I'll get those guys entered. So it's an R01 tab, and this one is for Mia. And we'll just enter that information in there for her. Okay, so now the data has been entered for both Bennett and Mia, and it doesn't matter what the order is right now in a table. We're just entering the data. When we have all that data entered correctly, we can close the tables, and when we open them back up, we can take a peek at them and make sure everything is good. So we'll close the veterinary table, the patient table, and the owner's table, and we'll open them up. And now the owner's table is in order, right? So 01 all the way down to, or sorry, 01 down to 02. Patients still has it out of order, right? Because we haven't figured out that we're going to do anything about that, which is fine. Just make sure that everything is looking good. And then our veterinary table. So we have 4 of them. So that should be good to go. We've finished entering the data, and now we're going to move on to queries. Now that we have entered records into the database, I have closed the tables that I had open, and we're starting now to create the queries. So we're going to go to Create, and we'll go to Query. There's Query Wizard, which we did a Query Wizard in the last chapter, but we're going to be using Query Design. So I'm going to select on Query Design, and when we open up Query Design, there's a few things that come up here. It sort of looks like a big blank screen. So what's going to go in here are tables. So I can right mouse button click and add a table, show a table. I can add a table up here. Right here, there shows where we can add a table. And I can also add a table over here. I can just drag and drop a table in. So there's numerous ways to add a table. So I'm just going to right mouse button click show tables, and this thing comes up, and then I can choose which table I want. I want the appointments table to come up, so I'll just take the appointments table and drag and drop it over here. I'm also going to open it up so that I can see all of the fields within the table. Okay, and we do that because we want to make sure that we can see all of the fields that are in the table. So let's take another look here. So this property sheet, depending upon where we click, depends upon what the properties are. So I clicked off of the table and it gave me this property sheet, so it allows me to do different things. If I click on the table in the appointments area, it gives me less properties. If I click down here and where the fields are, it gives me different things as well. So we have just added our table. Down here in the fields would be what fields we would like to have in our query. So the question is, what are we asking? So that's where we're going to start. So we have the appointments table here, just one field, or sorry, just one table. So we're going to add appointments. We'll add the appointment ID. So there's a couple of ways of doing that. We can double click and it adds the appointment ID in there. I could drag and drop it in, and that does that too. So if I wanted patient ID, I could take patient ID and I could drop it right in there where the plus comes. Okay, so now I have appointment ID and patient ID, that's the field, and below it, it shows what the table it is in. The sort means that we can sort it ascending or descending. So I'm not going to sort that right yet. Show just means whether it's going to show up when I run my query. Criteria is what we're going to be working on shortly. It says, well, maybe we only want to see certain appointments. So that's the criteria, and the or means that it's just the Boolean rules. So, or we want this or that, or this and that. So I'm going to, I got, what do I want in here? I want the appointment, the veterinarian. So if I put the wrong thing in here, I can get rid of it. So let's see. We wanted the veterinarian to go first. So I'm just going to drag veterinarian over there. So I want veterinarian. I want the appointment date. So this one here, I don't really want appointment ID. I want the appointment date. Okay, so I'll choose the appointment date. I want the appointment time, so I'll take that and make it an appointment time. What else do I want? Then I want patient ID. I'll double click patient ID. Treatment number, I'll double click treatment number. And owner. Okay, so we have reordered what we want to see. We have the veterinarian, appointment date, appointment time, and owner. So the first thing I'm going to do is just show you what happens when we run a query. Okay, so I'm just going to click up here. It's got run. I'm going to click run. And now you'll notice what came up. Veterinarian, appointment time, or appointment date, time, patient ID, treatment number, and owner. Okay, so it did exactly what I asked it to do. I asked it to bring me back the information like this. I haven't given it any criteria at all. I just ran it as was, just so I could see what was happening. So eventually I'm going to be adding some criteria down here. It's still named query 1. It won't ask me to do anything until I actually close it. It'll ask me whether I want to save it. But for now, we're going to put in some criteria. So thinking of a database where we have a lot of fields, maybe I want to find out which veterinarian has these appointment times, dates, and for what, right? So that's sort of my question now. So I'm going to go into the criteria under veterinarian because that's the criteria I want. And I'm going to type in G01. Okay, so I typed in the criteria and then I'm just going to run it again just to see what it brings back. Whenever I use criteria, I like to run my queries just to see if it brings back what I want it to. So then I look and I can see the veterinarian, there's only one there. They have an appointment date, time, a patient, a treatment number, and who that owner is. So I just ran my query and it brought me this veterinarian. Okay, so I'm going to now save my query. So a couple of ways to do that, of course, is I can click save up here in my save bar. So Control S is another way. And another one is I could just X out of it and it would ask me to save it as well. So this is going to be my first query that I save. So I'm going to click save. It says, what do you want to save your query name as? And I'm going to save it as M02 query Q01. Okay, so what's happening here is it was just module 2 query 1. And then I'll say OK. So now you'll notice that I have 2 queries over here on the query side. I have module 2 query 1 and I have an owner's query, and that was the query that was created in the first section. All right, so we have that. It's closed. If I want to close this, I can open it up anytime and it will come up. I could alter it if I went back into my design view. I could alter it, but for now I'm going to go back to my data sheet view. I could print this if I wanted to. So there's lots of things I could do with that. So that's my first query. Our next part, we're going to look at wildcards. So there are different wildcards out there. So one of the wildcards that we use a lot is the star. So if I use a star, it's a wildcard. And we can use a star to say, well, I want to search for everybody's name who starts with an S, for example. So then I would put S star. So anybody that starts with a star. Or say I wanted to find anybody who lived on a street, right? Doesn't matter what street it was. I could go into an address and put a star and then the word street or ST. And then it might come back with everybody who lived on a street. So there's different reasons for doing that, but it allows us a lot of flexibility. So we're going to open the owner's query in design view. Okay, so I have the owner's query. Now I can choose to open it like this and then go to design view. That's one of the ways I can do it. The other way I can do it is I can click on it and I can right mouse button click and go to design view. Okay, so I'm going to go to design view. So what happens here is I have the owner's table with all of the stuff in it. I have all of the fields entered here: owner's first name, last name, street address, city, street, state, postal code. We left out the home phone, a few other things, and the owner's ID. The other thing that's to note is there's no criteria. We just have them all. We want to show them all. There was no criteria added. So in this case, we're going to find all owners who live in Utah. Okay, so we're going to go to the state right here, into the state, and we're going to type in U and a star. Okay, so Utah, in case we have the Utah as spelt out, or we just have it as the abbreviation of UT, we want to find out everybody who lives in Utah. So U and a star. So I'm going to run that, and you'll notice it came back with everybody that came from Utah. Now I didn't have to, in this case, use the star because I knew that they were abbreviated, but they may not have been. Okay. So now we want to save this query as, what are we saving the object as? Query 2. So I'm just going to go to my Save As button up here. Now, if you don't have your Save As right here, there's a few ways we can do that. So you'd go to your down arrow over here to customize your quick access toolbar. I like having the Save As up there. It saves me from going into the Backstage view. So I'm going to go to drop down arrow. You go down and you go to More Commands. Okay, More Commands. Click on More Commands and then scroll down until you find Save As. And you notice I have my Save As is already there. So there is a Save As button there. Click on the word Add, and it will add it over here into the area that it's for this quick access toolbar up there. And then you can, if you want it to be beside the Save button, you just click the up or down arrow to put it where you want it to go, and then just say OK. Okay, so I'm going to Save As, and I'm going to save the owner's query to, and I will change that name to be M02Q02. Okay, and then I'll just say OK. And now that we have that saved, you'll notice that we now have 2 queries in there. Now, normally you would write the actual name of the query so that people knew what the query was all about, but in this case, we're just going to follow their directions. So our next one is we're going to use criteria for a field not included in the results. Okay, so I'm going to open the owner's query. So I'm going to click on the owner's query in Design View. So we're using the owner's query sort of as our base. And then in the postal code, so I'll go to the owner's postal code. On the line for criteria, I want to find those who live in a specific postal code area. So I'm going to type in 813 with a star, and that would be 813 and then anything after. So it sort of narrows down where they're from. And I'm going to run it first. That shows that so there's 81323, there's 2 owners that live there, but I might not want to actually show the postal code in my query, so might not be something that's necessary. So I can go back into Design View, and then I can just click on this button here, and it's going to be sorted like this is going to be the criteria, but it's not going to show up in my query. So I will run that again, and you'll notice now it's the same 2 people in Dolores, but it no longer has the postal code there. Okay, so that way we can find people that would be within that area. So we could do the same if we were looking for people that are in the 780 phone number area, right? So it might be something that we would do. Okay. So we're not going to keep this. We're going to run it. And it doesn't say that we're going to keep it yet. No, I don't think it says to keep it. It doesn't say to save it. We're going to close the query without changing it. So I'm going to close the owner's query. It says, do you want to save the changes? And I'm going to say, no, I don't. Okay. So I will close this other one. And then if I open up my owner's query, nothing changed. in my design view, nothing changed. That's good. I didn't want to change it all. So now I can just sort of close it right up. So now we're going to talk a little bit about a parameter query. A parameter query is a query that will run based upon a parameter that we give it. So for example, if I open up the owner's query, if I can find where my mouse is, there it is. If I open up the owner's query, I can go into design view, and I can actually put in a parameter in my owner's query right here. Maybe I want to enter something for the state. So for example, I could say, and I'm going to put it in a square bracket, and whatever I put in the square bracket will come up, okay, when I'm asked this question. So for example, and it'll make more sense when it says, I enter this. So I'm going to say enter CO for Colorado. So I'm just Colorado, or UT or UT for Utah. Okay, so I'm just giving some direction about what I want them to enter, and then I'm going to close with a square bracket. So as soon as I use square brackets, or I put something in areas that it doesn't understand, it will come up with a parameter query. So I'm going to run this, and you'll notice that whatever I typed in there came up here. So this says enter parameter value. So when I enter CO, okay, I open it, it comes up with the owner's state in Colorado. Okay, so if I close that query now, I'm going to say yes to save it. I'll save it, but I'm going to open up the owner's query again. And again, as soon as I open it up, it says, what do you want? Well, this time I want to see everybody from Utah, and it comes up like that. So it brings back everybody that's in the state of Utah. Now, if I wanted to remove that and I made a mistake, as soon as I run the query, I can just go in there and I can remove it if it was in the way. Like if it was something that I made a mistake on, I could change it. So when I did show that, it says whatever I put inside that square bracket is what's going to come up. So we are going to actually save this as, I'm going to save it as, what is it? Owner state query. That's what it's going to be called. Owner state query. Okay, so what I do have to do though, because I saved it before, is I'm going to close the owner state query, and I'm going to go back to the owner's query. I'm going to go in and choose Colorado, like CO, because I want to remove the parameter query from the owner's query. So I'm just going to go through and delete all that. So I'll just delete, get rid of all that, and I'll run the query again. And when I run the query again, it should show everything, and then I can just save that. I'll just click save so that the other owner state query wasn't the same. Okay, so now once again I can use it for something else. So I'm going to open the owner state query again, and maybe I want to see everybody from Utah. Let's see, and we'll just have the owner state query, just making sure that it looks the same. I was just sort of looking at it. I'm wondering if they're going to ding us for the spaces between, because it might not be the exact name they wanted it. Owner state query. So this one here, I think I need to rename this because I put a space between owners dash state query. So what I'll do is I'll just close this, close this. And because I made a mistake when I did my typing, I'm just going to click on the owner state query. Just click once so that it's highlighted. Right mouse button click and click rename. Okay, so you can click rename it, and I'm going to just get it in there so that I just have owner dash state query. Okay, and then just push enter to allow it to, if you push enter, it stayed as owner state query. So that's a parameter query. Every time I open up, it's going to ask me for what do you want. Okay, so that just shows that the parameters, and they go in a parameter box here, right? The parameters using a square brackets, and anything I write in there is what will come up in the information box. So I'll close that. The next type of query we're going to create will involve numbers. So we're going to use a number in a criterion. So we're going to go to create a query, and we're going to create a query in design view. And we want to add a table. So we're going to add a table. I'm going to show tables, and we want to, what do we want to add? We want, you'll notice that when I say add a table here, the add a table came up over here, and it shows that there are queries, but we really want a table. So we're going to pick the treatment cost table. So I'll just take treatment cost and drag it over. It shows all the fields in it already. We are going to add all the fields. So I want treatment number, treatment, animal type, and the cost. So I'm just double clicking so that they get entered down in the field down here. And then we can always drag this up if you like to see it a little bit bigger. So it comes up a little bit. I'm not sure why it's doing that funky thing over there, but you can make it bigger so that you can see it. And we are going to, let's see, we want to find out what the treatment costs for those that are $25. Okay, so exactly $25 would be the treatment cost. If I ran that, I could see that there was a couple of things that are $25 for neuter, heartworm, and spay. That's pretty cheap, hey? But if I went back there and I could change that, and I could say greater than $25, and I could run that as well. And those costs that were greater than $25 would come up. I could also use less than $25 and see what comes up. And there's a few that are less than $25. So I'm going to go back into my design view, and I'm going to put just $25. So I want those that are just $25. I'll run that. And then I'm going to save this as M02 query 3. So it's going to be saved as, where did my thing go? M02 Q03. I'll just say OK. All right, so I'll close, or I'm going to create a new query now. I'm going to create a query using query design. I'm going to use the appointments table. So I will go into the tables over here, and I will add appointments. So I double clicked. Appointments came up. I'll make it bigger so that I can see it. And we want to use the greater than operator to create a query that the CMF vets managers might use to find all appointments whose appointment date is after June 30th, 2021. So if the we use greater than, means the date comes after that. So we're looking because they're going to book a vacation, I guess. Okay, so we want to start a new query using our appointments table. We want to include appointment date, double click, appointment time, treatment number, veterinarian, and patient ID. Okay, and then what we're going to do, I'll just run that so you can see it. So we have all the appointment dates, times, treatment number, veterinarian, and patient ID. We haven't put any criteria in yet, but we want to put criteria in under the date. So we want it to be greater than 6/30/2021. Okay, so we want it to be after that. So we're going to run it, and there should be 2 appointments that come up. And there's 2 appointments that I guess he's going to have to cancel. Okay. So we're going to save that query as M02Q04. Okay. And we're going to close it. Okay, so we'll close those 2 queries. Now we're going to create another query. Let's see what we want to do. We're going to use an AND criterion to enable CMF Vets managers to find those appointments with an appointment date after the 30th of June 2021 and the veterinarian B01. Okay, so this is known as a compound query, and we're using the AND query. So they want to be after June 30th and the veterinarian B01. Okay, so we're going to start a new query. So create query design with the appointments table. Okay, appointments table. We are going to include appointment date, appointment time, treatment number, veterinarian, and owner's field. Okay, so we double clicked all those. In the veterinarian field, we're going to type that in the criteria, we're going to type that we want B01. And in the appointment date, we're going to type that we want it to be greater than 6. So 6/30/2021. So the appointment date is going to be after June 30th, and because it's on the same line, veterinarian B01. So when I run that, it comes up with this person has an appointment date, time, treatment, and is veterinarian B01. Now I just want to show you, I'm going to fix it back to exactly the way it should be. But if I had put B01, instead of putting it on the same line as my date, if I had put it down on the second line, so I had B01, that's the OR criteria. So it means anybody after June 30th or B01. Okay, and if I ran that, see, it wouldn't do what I wanted it to do, right? So it has everybody that's B01 or anybody after June 30th, okay? But I wanted it to be an AND, not an OR. So I have to go back and make sure it stays on the same line is where we use it when we're talking about AND. So it's after June 30th and B01. Okay, so I'm going to run that again, and I'm going to save that. I think I'm going to save it. Yep, I'm going to save it as query 5. So I'll do my save as. It's going to be M02Q05. And I'll say OK to save that. So now I'm getting a compilation of queries here. I'm now going to do a query with the OR. So I'm going to go back to design view. And this time I'm going to delete the text for the veterinarian field. Okay, so I'm going to delete the text for the veterinarian field. And I'm going to enter, I'm going to do the OR. Click the row or the row below. So I'm going to do an OR B01. And this time I'm going to save it as query 6. So we did an OR. So now we have the veterinarian B01 or they are after June 30th. So go back to design view and notice that they are on separate lines. Okay, so I'll run that back and I'm going to save it as query 6. So save as M02Q06 and just say OK. Okay, so now I have all of my queries closed. We're going to be doing some sorting. But before we do some sorting, we're actually going to import some data into our database so that we have more information in our database to do sorts and make them more useful. So we're going to import a table. So in module 2, they have this support AC CMF vets extra tables. So what we're looking at is we're going to add that extra table in there, but we need to have both databases open in order to do so. Okay, so I'm just going to open up this database as well. So we're going to make sure that they are both open. So I will enable content, and we have some veterinary vendors. I'm just going to look at it. We got some extra vendors in here. So we want to add those vendors in so that we have a little bit more information to work with. Okay, so we have we're going to go back to the CMF vets, not the extra tables. So you should have the CMF vets open. The other one will stay open as well, so it's still available for us. Then we're going to go to a new data source, because we have external data, and go to your external data tab, and we have a new data source. So use the down arrow. We're going to do it from database, and we will choose access because it's an access database. Okay, so we're going to browse to the table that we have, and in mine I have it somewhere, so I'll just go to where I have it. Right here, and I'll just say open. Okay, so we have a choice of importing the tables, queries, forms, reports, macros, and modules, so importing everything, or we might want to link to it. So it stays independent, but we link to it so that when something changes in that database, it will sort of show up in ours as well. But we want to choose that one, and we want to import tables. We're going to say OK, and then it will come up, and we'll notice that it has tables, queries, forms, reports, macros, and modules. We only have one table in here. We can choose to only import the tables. We could choose that we wanted the forms or reports, etc. But in our case, we want just to take the veterinary vendors. Yes, there's nothing else in there, but this gives you an idea of what you would want to choose. So we're going to say OK to that. I don't really want to save the import steps. There's no point in it. And then I will just say close. Okay, and now that table has been added to our tables here. So veterinary vendors is right there. So now we have this as a new object or table there. Okay, so now we're going to do some sorting. Okay, let's see what we want. We want to sort the cost in the treatment cost table by indicating that the cost field is to be sorted. And we're going to do it in ascending order. So we're going to create a new query. So go back to create, query design. We want the treatment and costs or treatment cost table over here. And we're going to add the treatment and cost field. So we want treatment and cost field. Okay. So I don't know if you've noticed, but down here, for some reason it came in, we have what's known as a group by already there. Okay. So this group by is a totals field. So if I go up there and I will take my totals, I'm not sure why the totals came on, but they did come on. We're going to ignore that for now. Usually I can take it off. I don't know why it's at a crosstab either. I did not want crosstab. So maybe I'm in the wrong. I did not want a crosstab. I want to select query and I, for some reason, click crosstab. So I want to select query and I'm going to take the totals off for now. Okay, so the total is on, it has a group by, take totals off, it takes it off. All right, so we have the treatment and the cost. And in our cost, we're simply going to do a sort in cost, and we're going to sort it ascending by treatment cost. Okay, so if I run that, it just shows that by cost, microchips all the way down to a dog wellness exam. Can't believe a neuter is only $25, but a wellness exam is $50, but whatever. Okay, so we've run it from low to highest. Okay, and we're going to save that query as M02Q07. Okay, so one thing I would like you to note here is you notice that we have things called duplicates. Now, sometimes we get things that are duplicated, and maybe we don't want to see the duplicates. So maybe we want to omit that so we don't see the duplicates. So there's a way to do that so that we can, when we talk about treatments and the cost, we would only see the treatments, right? Because there's a dog wellness exam, there's a wellness exam here. It looks like there's only the microchip is a duplicate. So we're going to be doing that. So duplicates become included when we do a normal search, but we may want to get a sorted list of the cost in the treatments cost table in which each cost is only listed once. Okay, so we're going to go back to our design view. And in the design grid, we're going to click just above the treatments field to select the field, and then we're going to delete the treatment field from the query. So I'm going to click on it, and I can choose to push delete. Okay. So now I'm going to put my cursor over here in the next field, the empty field besides cost, and we want to click on the property sheet button. Now our property sheet pretty much stays there. I can make make that property sheet go away or come back. I just have to click this field up here. We can also right mouse button click and show properties as well. So I want the property sheet over here in the field, and we're going to go to where's my property sheet? And there's something called unique values. Okay, Now there's a difference between unique values and unique records. Unique records, everything is the same. Unique values mean they don't duplicate the values. So I'm going to choose unique values, yes, okay, because I want a unique value. And so then I want to just show the costs of the treatments as a unique value only, okay? So if I run that, it will only show values that are unique in the costs, okay? Now it's kind of an interesting way to do that. Never seen anything quite like it. But I'm not going to save that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to design view and I'm going to put treatments back in here. Let's do an insert. Oh, maybe I'll just add a treatments in here. Then I'll move that over here. See, I select and then I can just move it over. Oops, I select, grab, drag, drop. Okay, so my costs, I will make sure the property sheet is on and then make sure we have unique values, yes, and we should be able to run that. Okay, and we now can see the costs, but we can also see that they are, they don't have the same, I should sort that too. Let me just, oh yeah, it is sorted already, good. Okay, so then any of our duplicates, our microchip went away. So I would rather have the microchip with its cost versus just the duplicate number of costs. So you'll notice that we've now got that double microchip gone. Okay, so I'm going to close that without saving. Oh, hang on. Oh, they wanted it to be saved the way it was. And we just wanted the cost there. Okay, I'll go back in and I have to fix that. So I'm going to go back in. I'm going to delete treatment again. Just select treatment, push delete, and I should be able to run it again and it has exactly what it actually wants. And we're going to save and close the query. So I'm going to close the query. It asks me if I want to save and I will say yes, I do. Now we're actually going to sort on multiple keys. Okay, so CMF vets managers need the data to be sorted by cost, low to high, within the animal type, which means that the animal type field is the major key and the cost field is the minor key. So the steps: place the animal type field to the left of the cost field. So we're going to create a new query in query design. We're going to have based on the treatment cost table. So we'll take the treatment cost table and we're going to add the fields in the following order. So we want treatment number, treatment, animal type, and cost. And we're going to select ascending as the sort order for animal type. Okay, so we're going to sort ascending by animal type and ascending by cost. Okay, so we've sorted on multiple queries fields. When we run that, we have our treatment number, treatment, and now animal type, all the canines and the costs. Then the felines and its costs sorted. Okay, so this is sorting on multiple keys. I'm going to save that. Click Save As, and it will be M02Q08. And I will say OK. So we've saved that query. Now maybe we only want to see like the top few. So we only want to show a specific number of records or a percentage of records. So in this case, the CMF Vets Managers wants to show only the first 5 records that were included in the results of this query. So then we're going to save it as a different name. So we're going to return to Design View. And in this case, we want to make sure that we have our Design tab on. And what we have here is a filter. So it's a filter of top values. So we have some choices in here. We have the top 5, the top 25, top 100, or top 5%, 25%, or all. We can also type in our own number in here. If we wanted the top 10%, for example, we could add that in as well. So in this case, we want to click the top 5, that return, to specify what should be in the top 5. So we can run that. And maybe we wanted to do it by the top 5 number who owes us money, for example, or something like that. So now we just came back with the top 5 and all the rest of them are gone. So we're going to save this one as M02 query 09. Okay, good to go. So what we're going to look at now is we're going to look at joining tables or creating queries from more than one table. So in this one right now, we're going to go into query design. And what's going to happen here is we are looking at gathering information from both the appointments and the treatment cost table. When we require information from more than one table, we must add the table in here. So for example, in this query, I'm going to get information from the appointments table and the treatment cost. So we want a query that shows the appointment dates that is in the appointments table, along with the cost of the treatment and the animal type from the treatment cost table. So we require both tables for that. So as you'll note that there is a line joining them because the treatment number is a primary key in the treatment cost table, and it is associated now with the word treatment number in the appointments table. So Access has found a relationship between the two, so they have put the join in there. So it's simply a join line that says that's how they're related. Okay, we haven't forced anything to be joined. It's just the join that they have created. So if we were hoping that there was a join there and we saw this was treatment number and this was treatment number, and we're like, how come the line isn't there? That would be, usually it's because there is a spelling error in one of the names. So that's always the first thing to look at. The other thing is to make sure that the data type is the same as well. So we are going to add the appointment date from the appointment table, the treatment, animal type, and cost from the treatment cost table. Okay, so we've now got those two values in there. We're going to sort ascending for both appointment date and the treatment field. So we'll sort ascending by appointment date and treatment so that we're sorted. And then we're going to run the query to take a look at it. So what we'll notice now is that we have all of the appointment dates and their treatment, animal type, and the cost. So I'm going to save that, and I'm going to save it before I do anything to it. I'm going to save the query as appointments and treatments. Okay, so appointments and treatments. So I have saved the query. So it's sorted by date and treatment within date. but it's only showing up those that have an appointment date and a treatment, okay? So it's not showing all the treatments that there are. So we're going to go back to design view, and what's happening here is that we don't see any of the other treatments that are available, so we don't show all the treatments. So the reason for that is simply because there's no appointment associated with them. So we can change the join properties so that we can show all the treatments, and then the ones that have appointments will come as well. So if I double click on this line, or right mouse button click and click join properties, doesn't matter which way you do it, double click the line or join properties, we have a couple of things to look at here. So in our join properties, we've already got the tables. You don't really have to worry too much about the tables. They've got that. They know what's happening there. This one, the radio button that's clicked right now says only include rows where the join fields from both tables are equal. So that means there must be an appointment date in order to show all the treatments. The other one says to include all the records from the appointments table and only those records from the treatment costs where the join fields are equal. Well, that's going to show all of the same that's happening right now, because there are no treatment costs that don't have an appointment attached to them. The third one is to include all records from the treatment cost, so all of the treatments available, and only those from the appointments where the join fields are equal. So we want all of the treatments, and then we want all of the appointments associated with the treatments. So we're going to choose this number 3 and see what happens. So I'm going to run it again. And we can see that it shows up all of the treatments, animal types, so microchip for canine and feline, and their costs associated with each one of those. And it also shows up if there is an appointment for one of those exams. So this is all the different appointments that are there. So it's showing all the treatments and animal types with their costs, and only those from the appointment date that actually match or that are being run. Okay, so that's when we've got join properties in there. I'm just going to save that, and I'm just going to save right over top of it. So I'll just click save so that it's saved. And we've now created, if we go back to design view, we just clicked the join properties on there. We wanted radio button number 3. And that way we will show all of our treatments and only those that are appointments that are associated with a treatment. So I will close that up and make sure it's saved as appointments and treatments. Our next step is to create a report and a form from a query. So we've created this query, and this query has all of our appointments and the treatments. So we could run this form on a daily basis, run this query on a daily basis and create a report, basically, so you could put it at the front desk to know who's coming in, etc. Or you could use it to say what happened that day, etc. So we're going to create a report. It's something we would give to somebody else from this query itself. So I'm just going to close the query. And it doesn't matter which one I have selected. I'm going to go into create, and I'm going to use my report. So I'm going to start with a report, and I'm going to create a report wizard. I'm going to use the report wizard. In the report wizard, I can choose which field I want. So I want to query appointments and treatments. So I want this query right here. I'm going to choose all of the available fields. So I want appointment date, treatment date, animal type, and cost. So I selected all. You can select them individually. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to say next. Everything is the way I want it. I don't want any groupings. I've already sorted it. Remember, I sorted it ascending by appointment date and ascending by treatment cost. So it's already, or by treatment, and so it's already sorted. I'm going to keep with tabular. And the title I want for my report, when I look at the title I want for my report, I want it to say appointments and treatment report. Okay, so I'm going to call it a report. So appointments and treatments report. And then I will preview the report to see what it looks like. Okay, so my appointments and treatments report shows that all of the treatments that are available and the appointments that are coming up for that and what their cost is. And it's already been saved. You'll notice down here on the report side, it says appointments and treatments report. Okay, so we've produced a report. If we want to print that, we just could use the print button here or go into our file, backstage view, and print. And we could select the print, quick print, and it would just send it exactly to where I wanted it to go. So I don't need to do any printing on that one. I'm just going to say cancel. And I will go back to my, it's still on print preview. Okay, so I'm sitting here at print preview. And then I can choose all the setups from here. And I can also close my print preview right here. So I closed my print preview. It took me back to design view of my report. We're going to be looking at design view of reports in the coming modules, but not right now. So I'm going to go over here to my view, and I'm just going to go into report view. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is I want to create a form from a query. So I'm just going to go to create. I'm going to make sure that I have my query appointments and treatments selected because I'm just going to go and use a quick form. This is a form, but I must be on that query or table for it to choose for it to know which one I want to create a form from. So I'm going to just click on form. It created a general form. It's not super pretty, but that's okay for us. We will fix it up or learn how to fix these things up later on. Okay, so we just created a quick form. It's in layout view, as you see right now. I can go down to the bottom or up to here and change the view. If I go to form view, now is where I could enter data if I needed to. And I'm going to save that one as the appointments and treatments form. Okay, so I have now created the appointments and treatments form. And I will just say OK. And it's saved down here in the forms area for appointments and treatments. So I'll close those two up. So now that we have created lots of stuff in our database, we may want to export our data into another type of program. So we can export access databases, so tables, queries, stuff like that. We can export them into Excel. We can export them into Word as a RTF file or a text file. So we can export also to another database. So what we're going to do is we're going to export the information in the appointments and queries treatment or appointments and treatments query so that somebody who is using Excel has access to the information. So we're going to go click on the appointments and treatments query. We're going to go to, and I'll open it up there, and we're going to go into external data. and we have imports and we have exports. So we're going to export to Excel. And when we export to Excel, it's given me a name. And what it did was it used the same name that I had for the database for the query, but it put XLSX for an Excel document. We're going to change it as a Excel document. There are other things we could use as well. We are going to browse for where we want to direct it to. I'm going to change where it is, so I'm going to browse and make sure it's put into the same folder as my module is. So it's comma 115, we're in module 2, and this is our textbook project. So I want to export it right there. So we should be good. Export data with formatting and layout. I don't really have any formatting and layout going on. It's fine. It would just export. I don't need to select any of those. So I don't have any specific criteria that I'm going to be choosing. I will say, now that I've put it where I wanted it to go, I'll say OK. It asks if I want to save the export steps. Sometimes I do, because I'll save the export steps and then I don't have to choose which location it gets saved to or any of the option buttons. It's just automatic. So I'm going to choose to save the export steps in here. So as soon as I click that, it wants to know what I want to save it as. Okay, so I want it as exports, appointments, and treatments. So that's already said what it's going to be saved as. If I wanted to put a description, I could put it in there. And maybe I regularly do that. Maybe every day or at the end of each week or whatever, we automatically need to export this somewhere, using it as a backup or whatever we're doing. I could create an Outlook task that says, remember to do that and when that is. So it's actually kind of handy. So I'm going to save my export. And then if I wanted to go and check, I will just go to my folder. And my folder, unfortunately, I'll just move this over here so we can see. It came up with appointments and treatments as an Excel document. So we're just going to take a look at it in Excel. And it would come up and it should show all of the information. So if we look at it, I'll just zoom in a bit. We have appointment date, treatment type, animal type, cost, and what are the dates of those exams. Okay, so it's kind of handy. It exported it to Excel. So I'm just going to close that up. And I don't want to save it. I'm not worried about that. It can just stay the way it is. And I will just minimize that. And we're back at our appointments and treatments table. So I'm just going to close that back up because we're done with that piece. So we've created joined query. So the appointments and treatment is actually, if we go into our home tab and design view, this is because it uses information from both tables or fields from both tables. It's considered a join query. And sometimes you don't actually want all of the records. So all we're going to do is put in some criteria in here. So what they want is CMF Vets Managers wants to include only those treatments whose cost is more than $10. Okay, so we're going to go to cost. So in our criteria, we'll go into the cost field and say greater than $10. So it only wants to include those that are greater than $10. So when we run that, it will only include those that are greater than $10. Okay, so we just put a criteria in a join query. So you can put any type of criteria in there. This one we don't want to save, so I'm going to X out of it and say no to saving because I want to leave the appointments and treatments table the way it was. But we just wanted to show that you can actually just use criteria in any join query. So right now we're going to look at calculations. So you can create calculations sort of like you do in Excel, a little bit more difficult, but you can create calculations in reports. You can create them in queries. You can report them, create them in tables, forms, etc. So calculations are something that can be done in anything in Access. So we can do what's known as individual record calculations, or we can do things that are like group calculations. So maybe we want the average of or the sum of a group of things. So for example, in CMF Vets, managers might want to know the total cost of their inventory in the veterinary vendors table. So what is the quantity times the cost for each of their veterinary supply? And it's quite easy to do when we learn how to create them. So we create a calculated field in order to do something like that. So they might also want to calculate the average amount paid for the veterinary supplies for each vendor, or the average paid for suppliers from maybe the Duncan veterinary supplies, or the average paid for supplies of Gaines Vet supplies, etc. So they're going to do group calculations in order to do that. So we're going to start by creating a calculated field in a query. So we're going to create a query. So I'm going to go to Create, Query Design, and I'm going to use I'm going to choose Table, and I'm going to use the veterinary vendors table. So I'll drag that one over, show all the information in here. I'm going to add the vendor name, state, veterinary supply, quantity, and cost fields. Okay, so I have those fields entered in there. So what I want to know is I want to know what the total cost is in my inventory. So I want to find out for each of the vendors. So it's going to be quantity, the amount I have on hand. So I'm just going to run this query to show you what we have. So we have 50 vaccines at a cost of $4 that we bought from Duncan Veterinary Supplies. We have 65 vaccines for canine rabies at a cost of $8 each. So what I want to know is what is the total cost. So I'm going to create a calculated field that pops on the end that multiplies the quantity by the cost. Okay, so I'm going to go into Design View. I'm going to select on this next field over. I'm going to do a right mouse button click, and I'm going to use Zoom. Okay, so Zoom, all Zoom does is gives me space to type. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my formula right there. So when I create my formula in here, we always start with the name of our new field. The name of my new field is going to be total cost. Okay, so I have created the name of my new field. I'm going to use my colon, not a semicolon, use a colon. So total cost and the colon, that is the name of my new field. So now what I'm going to do is I want it to multiply two different fields. So I have to use a square bracket to annotate that I'm going to use a field. So the square bracket, make sure your spelling is correct. We want quantity. So quantity, we're just going to double check, make sure quantity is spelled exactly the same as your field name. If it is spelled incorrectly, it will run up as a parameter query and you'll know instantly that it's wrong. Close the square bracket. So we want quantity. Use your operator. So we want times. So you can use plus, divide, minus, doesn't matter what it is. Times, square bracket again. And we want it to be cost. Okay, no spaces. exactly the way the field name is. So I'm going to show you what happens if it's correct and what happens if it's incorrect. Okay, so I'm going to run that. I'm going to say okay. And it says total cost is quantity times cost. So I'm going to run that right now. And it gave me the total cost. Okay, so it came up and it multiplied 50 times 4, 65 times 8, etc. And because it did that, it has the total cost came up. And because I did it right, it did a very good job. So let's go in there. I'm just going to zoom in on this one again. Right mouse button click and click zoom. And this time I'm just going to do something as simple as leaving a space on the other side of quantity. Okay, so I'm going to say okay. And now I'm going to run it again. That one actually worked. Look at that. It knew what I was talking about. Let's just try it this way, and maybe instead of just a space, what I'll do is I will spell something incorrectly. Okay, so I'm going to call this costs instead of cost. So it's quantity times cost, and then I'll say okay. When I run it this time, it's like, it comes up with this enter parameter value, and it says costs. And you're like, costs? What do you mean by costs? Oh, I spelt it wrong. And then I have to say okay. And you'll notice it says total cost and nothing came up. Okay, nothing came up. So there was an error there. So I'm going to go back to design view and go into my zoom. And I'm going to fix my cost to say cost. And then I'll just say okay. So now I have a calculated field right there. And my calculated field is named total cost, and it multiplied across exactly what I wanted it to multiply across for. So I really want to change some of the captions that's up here because sometimes they're a little too generic. So if I was to use them in different field or different queries and join tables, maybe there's too many that are like the same. So we're going to just change the caption on these. There's different ways of changing the caption. The caption is just what shows up right here. Okay, so there's a few ways of doing it. We can go into our design view, into our property sheet, and if our property sheet isn't up, you can just add it. Okay, it's up here. You can just add it, and in the caption, we can change the caption for any field that we like. So I don't really want to change it for total cost. Total cost is good. I'm going to go click onto the word cost, and in the caption, I'm going to change it, and I'm going to call it vendor cost. Okay, so that one's going to be vendor cost. And what does it say that? It says that it is not an option. Why did it use that? I'm going to go back here into my caption. Try that again. Vendor cost. And in my quantity here, I'm going to change that to vendor quantity. Okay. Oh, go back. Let's see. Vendor cost. I had to click off of it. Too bad. That's so in our caption. I'm going to go back and I'm going to try that again. Vendor quantity. And then I'll just click back onto quantity over here. Okay. So if I ran that, it changed it to vendor quantity. I'm just going to double check quantity. Making sure my spelling is correct. And vendor cost. Okay, so total cost. And if I want to save that, I'm going to save this query as M02 query or Q10. So I saved that. So I have done a calculated field on vendor quantity times total cost. It gives me my total cost. So I'm going to close that one up. Our next one is where we're going to be doing some averaging. So they want to calculate the average cost for all veterinary supplies. So we're going to create a new query. We're going to use our query design. And we're going to open up the veterinary vendors table. So I'll go into my tables and go to veterinary vendors, bring that over. And I'm just going to add the word or the field cost in there. So I'm going to open up cost. And if I ran that right now, it just shows what the cost is, all those individual pieces, what their cost is. But what I want to do is I want to find out what the total is. So I'm going to go up here into the totals button. I'm just going to click that on. When I click it on, it adds a new row called group by. Okay, so this is where I can group things and then add them or total or add them up, or I could do a min or a max, etc. But we'll do that next. For now, I just want to use the average because it asked me to average the cost of the veterinary vendors. Okay, so once I've done that, I just clicked average in the total. There's other things I could have chosen, right? Max, min, sum, etc. Choose average and run. So the average cost is $9.95 of all of my vendors. Okay, so now that I have that, it doesn't really mean all that much because it says average of cost, etc. It's sort of hard to know what it's doing. So we're going to change that so we can calculate a little bit more. So what we're going to do now is we'll go back to our design view. And this time we're going to include the vendor name. Okay, so I'm going to include the vendor name. So it has the average and grouped by vendor name. So I'm going to run that and we'll take a look at it. And now it's the average cost for every vendor. Okay, so that's the average of cost by vendor name. But we want to add a criteria in here. And the criteria that we're going to use is that it's anyone that has SAN and a star. Okay, so any of the vendors that start with SAN. So if I run that, it would see it's Sanchez Supplies. They have the average of the cost for Sanchez Supplies. Now I can also choose to not show the vendor name. So if I went down into my design view and I deselected the show button and ran it again, it would show the average of cost, and I could name that average cost for Sanchez Supplies, for example. So I'm going to save this query because that's for some reason what they want, and I'm going to save it as M02Q11. So I'll save that one. So now we have 11 queries so far. Sometimes we use group by. So I'm going to go back into design view. I'm going to clear the grid. So what I'll do is see where it comes black arrow. I'm going to select and select. And I can clear it numerous ways, but I usually just delete, push delete on my keyboard. And it will clear everything that's there. So this one, we're going to create a query that calculates the average amount paid for each vendor supplier account at CMS Vets. Okay, so I'm going to return there. I'm going to include vendor name and the cost field. Okay, so if I run this right now, it shows my vendor name and the costs. So what I want is I want the average of the cost of the vendors, so the average cost, and I will run that. I don't think it changed much, but if we had lots of information on lots of vendors, then it definitely would. Okay, so this is we grouped by vendor name and average the cost. Okay, so I'll run that again, and this time I'm going to do a save as, and I'm going to save it as M02 Q12, so query 12. Okay, and then I'll just close it. Our next step in queries is crosstab queries. Now, crosstab queries allows us to group data in two different categories or types of information. So maybe you want a query that summarizes the sum of the current costs grouped by both state and vendor name. So you would have one as the row heading, and you would have one as the column heading. One thing about crosstab queries is they sort of give you a visualization of what you're looking for, so it's really very helpful. So I'm going to go into Create, and I'm going to go into a query wizard this time. And I want to create a crosstab query. Okay, so I'm going to create a crosstab query, and I'll select crosstab query, and I'll say OK. And this says which table or query contains the field you want. Well, we want to take the, which one do we want? We want the veterinary vendors table. Okay, so we want the veterinary vendors table. And you'll notice that this shows what it's going to look like. Okay, so if you get a picture of one and they say create this, then at least this shows you what it's going to look like. Okay, so I just chose the table and I said next. Now it says which field values do you want as row headings? So that would be the ones right here, right? These ones down here that are the row headings. And for us in our row headings, we want to have it as a state. Okay, so it wants to be state. So you notice state 1, state 2, state 3. So it doesn't tell us what the states are, but it shows that this is the states are going to be there. All right, so now it says we've got that done, and then we can just say next. Then it says which field values do you want as the column headings? This one is ID1, ID2. So if we click on the different ones, do we want the vendor names, their street address, veterinary supplies? So what do we want? In this case, we want the vendor name. So they're going to be the vendor name. Now, when we look at this, we have vendor name, and it still has this word total in here. Okay, so we still haven't finished yet. So I'll say next. And now it says, what number do you want calculated in here? So do you want to add up the cost? Do you want to like sum the cost? What do you want to do with this? Do you want to just count them all up? How many vendors are in each state? So that's the other question we want. So we want cost, and we want the total of the cost. So we want the sum of the cost. The other thing it says is, do we want to include the row sums? And that would be if we added up all of the numbers so that we would have a one with like the total in it. So we usually do want that one. So we'll go next. And then it says to give it a name. So this is veterinary vendors crosstab. So that's the name they gave it. So it came from this table. That's why they called it _ crosstab. So now we're going to say, okay, well, let's finish. So in this crosstab, it shows the states, right? So that we have the state is the row heading, so Colorado and Utah. And then we have a total of a cost. That is the total that we were looking for the rows. And we have the Duncan veterinarians, Gaines vets, suppliers, all the different suppliers that are out there. Okay. So they just show us all the different suppliers that we have and what their total amounts are of the cost for in each state. So we can close that. It's already saved when we had created it. It was the crosstab was saved as soon as we created it. This layout is just the thing. I'm not going to bother saving the layout thing. But if I open it back up again, it still doesn't show all the fields, but that's okay. This was the crosstab and it saved automatically when I finished my wizard. Okay, so that is it. The final thing that we need to look at is just our navigation pane right here. So we have a search bar that we could search for access objects. You also have a drop-down list here. In this list is all access objects. And we want to navigate to category by object type. So we want to make sure that we have we can change the ways that it looks, but this is just sort of shows them filtered. So if we filter by tables, it only shows tables. If we only want queries, it'll only show queries, reports, but we usually want all access objects. And we can choose this to say that we want just tables and their related views. So anything related to a table. So this is appointments. And then it sort of opens up and closes if you want it to open up and closes. So it's related to all their views, how it was created, like what's the date and that it was created, the latest. And then of course, you can just go back to object type, which is the best way to do all access objects and object type. So we have tables, queries, and forms and reports. So I'm going to close this up and I'm going to upload it. And if there's any fixes that need to be done, I will create the next piece with them in. If there were no fixes, then that's good to go. But I usually spell things incorrectly, so occasionally it makes me fix things. So we shall see.